Welcome. And thank you all for coming out on this busy night. We are so glad you're here tonight. My name is Jennifer Atkins, and I'm a member of the Dedham-Westwood-Norwood Coalition for Transgender Equality. And our coalition members, and there are many of us, are passionate about protecting the rights of transgender people, the hard-won rights of people in our community. We feel incredibly lucky to have this amazing panel of speakers here with us tonight who are going to share their stories with you. We hope you will be inspired not only to vote yes on question 3, but to encourage your friends and your neighbors as well. So before we get started, you were handed some note cards, and there are also action cards on your seats. The note cards are for the question and answer session. They're for any questions you may have for our speakers, and our moderator will be asking those questions. We will try to answer everyone's questions to the best we can in the time we have available tonight. The action card has some suggestions for actions that you can take. Some are big, some are small. It's based on your energy and your available time. And so now I would like to make 2 introductions to you. The first is our wonderful moderator, Danielle Murray, who's sitting up here. Danielle grew up in Westwood, and she's now raising her son here. She is a Welcoming Schools facilitator and an LGBTQ liaison with the Boston Public Schools. Danielle is also a trainer for GLSEN, working to make school environments safe and affirming for all students, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And I'm also very pleased to introduce our gracious host, Rabbi Micah Citroen, who is also a supporting member of this coalition, and he would like to share just a few words with you.
Thank you so much. It's really the entire community of Temple Beth David that's hosting, especially led by our social justice committee. I just wanted to say thank you. It's really affirming to be part of this larger extended community of kindness, and it's really an honor for us to be able to host. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, everybody. I want to start by introducing Kelly Jenkins. Kelly is a licensed middle school educator for the state of Massachusetts. She's a fierce advocate for LGBTQ youth. She's a host and a producer to an award-winning show on Acton TV called Kelly's Quest. And she's been featured on NPR. Kelly is actively involved with the Yes on 3 campaign to uphold the rights of Massachusetts transgender citizens. She moved to Massachusetts from Tennessee in 2014 because of her career as a teacher.
So, first of all, thank you very much for letting me be here tonight. Every time I do one of these talks, it inspires me more than it inspires anyone else, because seeing this many people that are saying, you know, first of all, I want to hear something and learn something about what it is to be transgender is something I did not know anything about growing up. All I knew growing up was, you are not who you say you are. You better hide who you say you are, and you better not let people ever know you are who you are, because you should be ashamed of yourself. And I had this religious upbringing, Southern Baptist, evangelical, that I was raised in East Tennessee. That influenced me so much in my life that it prevented me from becoming my authentic self out of fear, out of shame, out of hatred, out of self-loathing, out of everything that goes along with not being allowed to be yourself and having your parents say to you, who you say you are is wrong. I didn't listen to them completely. If I had, I wouldn't be here right now. So what I did was, I started doing other things to find solace. I started playing disc golf, a sport that I love. I started hiking. I started doing anything that I could think of where I could connect my mind and my body to where they would work together. Because in the world, whenever I was around my friends, my mind and my body were enemies. But when I was playing sports, or when I was hiking, or when I was playing disc golf, I could say to my body, go do this amazing thing, hit this curveball, throw this disc 300 feet, do this hike up this mountain, and my body would go do it. And I found peace in that. For 49 years, I lived in East Tennessee because I was able to find peace just through that. The rest of my life was no fun whatsoever. Being an educator in Tennessee, I had to start my career presenting as a male. And what that means is that when I was born, the doctor held me up and looked at everything externally and said, Miss Jenkins, Mr. Jenkins, you have a healthy baby boy. They were right, I was healthy. They were right, I was a baby. They were wrong about the last part. Biologically, I cannot change the fact that I am XY. That is who I am. Who I am in here, who I am in here, that is a woman. And it's been that way for as long as I could remember. Even when my family said I was wrong about it, I still knew I was right. I became a teacher in Tennessee, presenting as a male. They found out that I was transgender because I couldn't hide my authentic self. So I started transitioning while I was teaching as a male. They found out. They didn't like the fact that I was a teacher that was transgender. They didn't mind that I was a teacher. They were fine with that. I had very good marks on that. Everybody said, okay, you know how to teach a kid, but you're transgender. One of my first teaching jobs, the parents decided to pull their kids out of my classroom. So I went from having 25 kids to having 12 kids, which was, as a teacher, is wonderful, except for the fact that those kids were in another classroom. The cool part about that story is some of those kids badgered their parents, and those kids came back to my classroom. Because the kids know. You all know. You get it. You see it every day. I didn't have that luxury as an adult, so they let me go. And my teaching career stopped cold in Tennessee. In 2014, I said, enough is enough. I am a teacher. I'm an educator. I've got a license. I lived in England to get my teaching license. I did all of these amazing things just to become the educator I know that I am, because if you ask me what my identity is, who I identify as an educator first. Somewhere down that line is the word transgender. But it is somewhere down that line, except for right now. Right now, me being transgender is just the most important part of it, because I do not want to lose my rights. I know what it's like to be kicked out of a restaurant. In Tennessee, I went into a restaurant with my friend, sat down at the bar, waiting to have a beer served to us. They just kept walking by. We would get their attention, they would keep walking by. Finally, we got the message and we left, not being served. That person that was with me is my friend to this day. How he managed to do that and be in that humiliating situation with me and still persevere and be my friend, that was my first ally ever. Now look at all these allies. Yes, it's a totally different experience for me up here. I moved up here because I've also been asked to leave a place for using the women's restroom in Tennessee. All of these things happened to me in Tennessee, and I could have chose any state in this country to move to, and I chose this one. And it was the smartest decision I ever made. Absolutely the smartest decision I ever made. The first winter I moved up here was the winter when there was 30,000 feet, I think it was. And I learned how to shovel snow. I learned all of those things that you have to do to live in Massachusetts. And I appreciated it so much, because what I have done since I've been here is the school that I interviewed for, I'm not a teacher yet. I have my teaching license in this state, but the job that I have right now as a teaching assistant, when I went in and interviewed for the job, a giant rainbow flag right there in a public middle school. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like the greatest day ever. I told them in the interview that I was transgender. I'm driving home thinking, did I make the mistake telling them I'm transgender? Before I got home, they called me and said, we want to hire you. I know this is the right state for me. I moved up here not knowing a soul. I volunteered at a camp in New Hampshire called Camp Aeronautic. It's for transgender youth and gender variant youth. And I saw these kids being their authentic selves, and it inspired me. I went home back to Tennessee, and a month later, I packed my 4-door Honda Civic with anything I could shove inside of it, including my 2 dogs and my cat, and I left everything behind in Tennessee. And I moved up here knowing one person for a week. That one person said to me, you know, come live with us. We don't know you, but we want to give you a chance. So this person let me live with them. So I found a house up here within a month living with them, and they said, go find you a job, go find you a home, go find you all that stuff. 3 weeks later, I had a job. 4 weeks later, I had a place I was living in. Massachusetts wants me here. I'm not going back to Tennessee because we're going to vote yes on 3, and that's going to make me stay here so I can help teach and follow that dream. All that dream is on hold right now. All of my teaching license is on hold. My teaching career. In April of this year, January, I passed my MTELs for middle school science. Then I managed to get the license and everything. Here is the biggest ally of them all, and I'm going to tell you why you got to vote yes on 3 with this. The person heard my story on NPR when you were talking about that. This lady heard it in New Jersey, and she said, we want to help you get your teaching license because we heard your story. They created a GoFundMe page, handed me the money, trusted me, and said, go get your teaching license. So I went and took my MTELs, I went and got all my transcripts, I did all of these things that you have to do to become a teacher, and I've still never met this lady. We talk on the phone, we do all these things, but that was an ally that helped me to stay in this state. Tennessee is 900 miles away. I know this is far enough away from Tennessee for me to keep my rights. I know I made the right decision. And I'm hoping, just please, continue to push forward with me. Tell your friends. I met someone that's transgender. They seemed okay. They got a funny accent, but they seemed okay. We really want them to have their rights. Please share the words. That's the most important thing for me, is vote yes on 3 and convince other people that it's the right thing to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And after learning to shovel all that snow, you've definitely earned your Massachusetts badge. So I want to introduce Tracy next. Tracy uses the pronouns she, her, and hers. And Kelly, I'm sorry that I didn't announce that for you too. Tracy Mckay is a kindergarten teacher and a mom of 2 transgender children. She's an advocate for transgender equality and shares her story with whoever she can, wherever she can, in order to further this cause, as well as to support parents that are going through the same experience. So thanks, Tracy.
So I've done this a few times now, and it is so hard to follow Kelly. I could listen to Kelly all night, but now you got me. So, as Danielle said, my name is Tracy Mckay, and I live here in the Boston area with my husband and my 3 children. My oldest 2 are in college, and my youngest is a junior in high school. And for the first 17 years of parenting these wonderful children, I thought that I was raising 3 boys. And that was something that kind of helped to shape our identity as a family, and it certainly influenced my identity as a mom. And I thought we were the most boring, average, ordinary family you would ever imagine. And then about 5 years ago, both my oldest child and my youngest came to me, each without knowing the other, about the other, and let me know that they were transgender. So for my kids, what that meant was that even though they had been born with boy bodies and were using boy names and being raised as boys, they knew in their hearts and their minds that they were really girls. So it was about 3 years ago that both of them started living full-time as the female that they knew they were. And just like that, my husband and I had 2 daughters. So as you can imagine, there were so many emotions going on at this time. First of all, we were really surprised. My kids never outwardly expressed any interest in female names, female clothing, or even more stereotypical female toys or activities. So for us, it felt like it just came right out of the blue. And I was sad. I was sad that my children's lives would be so much harder than I ever would have imagined. And I definitely felt a sense of loss. I didn't feel a sense of loss that like I was losing my children, because I knew that they were the same people inside, no matter how they presented to the world. But I felt a sense of loss of the future that I had imagined for them. So as a parent, and probably like many of you, I imagined them in the future with partners and jobs and families, if that's what they wanted. And as we went through this, I really doubted that they would ever have these things. I felt like I was looking at our family's future through a kaleidoscope, and everything that I thought I knew was tossed up in the air, and I had no idea what it would look like when it all came down. I was also angry. I kept thinking, why couldn't my kids just have been born in the bodies that felt right for them? And finally, I was scared. And I have to say, there are not too many days that go by, even now, that I am not afraid for their emotional and even physical well-being. So as we're dealing with all these emotions, there were lots of tasks or jobs that had to be done as well. We had to deal with our children's schools. We had to deal with doing legal name changes, so we could change names on documents like passports, driver's license, insurance cards, all of that. We had to find doctors and therapists. And the tasks, it seemed like a long list, and it felt very formidable. But I think looking back, for me, it was helpful to have this to-do list, and it just kept me going in the direction that my kids needed me to be going in. One of these tasks that we had to do was I had to get new wardrobes for my daughters. And I laugh now because I was so completely out of my depth. Before, I would just go to Old Navy and buy jeans and t-shirts and shorts in 3 different sizes and come home, and that was the end of it. But clearly this was not going to work anymore. And I had no idea where to buy clothes for these young women. And I found myself, one day I was at a mall, and I found myself actually following around a group of teenage girls to see where they would go in and where they would buy their clothes. And I realize now that sounds kind of crazy and probably a little creepy, but at the time, it felt really important for me to get their wardrobe right, whatever that was. And I think it was because I felt like that was the only way that I could affect how they were seen by the world, and the only way that maybe I could keep them safe. So the other thing that was going on at this time is that we were telling people, our friends and family, about these changes. And we were very fortunate that our friends and family were and continue to be incredibly supportive. But even with all that support, we had so many difficult conversations, difficult questions, and I just had to keep reminding myself that I had had a head start in getting used to these changes, and I had to hope that with some time and education, everyone else would become more comfortable as well. I remember one particular conversation with a woman, whose son was a very good friend of my daughter's before she transitioned. And as I'm telling her this, I can see in her face that she is really having a hard time with it. And she tries to rally at the end, and she says, I'm gonna tell him that if he sees her around town, he has to say hi to her, because you know what, she's still a person. And I was like, yep, she's still a person. And I think what was so upsetting about this comment was the fact that my children's identity as people, their very humanity, would ever come into question just because they're transgender. One of the things that was really very poignant for me going through this process was watching some of the older members of my family, particularly my mom and my father-in-law, come to terms with these changes. So I know that they probably had a lot of stereotypes, or preconceived notions about transgender people, and I know a lot of those were probably not so positive. But when they saw that these transgender people were the children that they had known and loved and cared for all their lives, those notions quickly fell away, and they really became 2 of their strongest champions. And I will say that we all could learn a lesson from my 83-year-old father-in-law, who has never once used the wrong pronoun for my daughters. And for that, we are very grateful. So before I wrap up, I just do want to talk a little bit about what having this law in place means for my family. And I'll give you a little example. My oldest daughter goes to school in upstate New York. And if you have ever driven up that way, you know it's kind of a long, straight, boring ride up the Mass Pike, and there's these big rest stops along the way. Every time we stop at a rest stop, I am terrified that my daughter, my 23-year-old daughter, will have to go to the bathroom. Because I am terrified that someone will call her out on using the women's room. And I am keenly aware with every mile we drive that we are leaving this relatively safe bubble in which we live, and I have no idea how people will react to her. And I am also keenly aware every time we stop of what state we are in. Because while it would be no less humiliating for her to be called out on using a women's bathroom in Massachusetts, at least I know right now the law is on her side. And no one could force her to use the men's room. And that gives me some comfort. But if this law is repealed, we won't have that anymore. And that fear and anxiety that I feel, and I'm sure she feels, will be an everyday kind of occurrence. And it won't be just about bathrooms. Every time my family will go to a restaurant, we will have to worry about whether or not we'll be turned away. And every time my daughters go shopping, they will have to be worried about whether or not they will be served. And every time I take them to a doctor, or God forbid they go to an emergency room, we will always wonder whether or not they will get the treatment that they need because they are transgender. Now, I would imagine for all of you that's not the way that you would want life to be for yourself or for your loved ones. But that is exactly what it will be like for my kids, for Kelly, for Brandon, for all transgender people in Massachusetts if this law is repealed. And really the bottom line is I'm a parent, just like I bet lots of you. And I want the same things for my kids as you want for yours. I want them to be safe and happy, treated with respect and dignity. I want them to have opportunities. That's what we all want, right? And just because my children are transgender does not make them any less worthy of any of those things. So, 5 years after we started this journey, I feel like for us the dust has begun to settle, but I know we have lots of challenges to face, decisions to make. And I don't stand here saying that it's easy or we have the answers, because it's not, and I don't. There are days and weeks that we struggle mightily. But while I used to think about what I lost, now I can really see what I have gained. I have 3 children who are brave enough and strong enough to go out in the world every day as the people they need to be, and they will stand by each other no matter what. And I know that I look into the future now, they will have partners, they will have jobs, they will have families if they want them. Won't look like what I thought it was going to look like, but it will look like what they want it to look like, and that is the most important thing. So thank you so much for coming here tonight.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That perspective is so vital to this discussion. I really appreciate that. I want to introduce Brandon Adams next. Brandon uses he, him, and his. Brandon is an outspoken advocate for transgender rights. He courageously testified at the State House in front of the Massachusetts legislators to support the Civil Rights Law Amendment that was passed in 2016. Since then, Brandon has generously given his time and shared his personal experiences speaking at numerous events to support and protect the rights of other transgender people. Thank you, Brandon.
First of all, I don't know what I'm doing, so give me a second. I think I got it. All right, so I can't, I don't know how to follow that. I almost was in tears, to be completely honest. But basically what I'm gonna do is tell you a story about myself and why it's important that all of you are here today. It means the world to me to look out and see so many people here willing to support my rights, my family's rights, everyone who needs it. It hits a core of my heart. But just so you know my name, but it's Brandon Adams, and I am a senior at Norfolk County Agricultural High School. I'm a 17-year-old young man, one who loves being outside or in a tree, one who finally got his driver's license and can take my beautiful girlfriend out on dates. But my journey to get here took many different directions. Each of us has our own unique story, and mine has many different beginnings. I was born in August of 2001, the third of 4 children, and my mom was, simply put, not equipped to take care of herself, much less 4 kids. My first 2.5 years were ones of neglect and abuse, forcing my 12-year-old sister and 5-year-old brother to take care of me and my baby sister. In June of 2004, the Department of Children and Families took custody of me, my little sister, and my big brother. Sunday evening, we lived in Revere, and by Tuesday night, I met my dad's, and we were living in Framingham. This was a true new beginning. Everything changed. We now had 2 loving parents, a nice house, a big yard to play in, and best of all, me, my brother, and sister were kept together. As I got older, I began to sense that things just weren't quite right. But I didn't know why that was. I knew I liked a lot of the same things as my older brother, such as playing baseball in the Framingham Little League, being one of the only girls on what is traditionally a boys' league, just felt right. I was not out of place. I was part of the boys' team. Basketball was another sport that I truly enjoyed. While I loved the game and played as hard as I could, it was on the girls' team. And this just never felt right to me. But I really couldn't put my finger on why it didn't feel right. I was probably 9 or 10 at this point, the start of my coming out to myself, to my family, and to my friends. In middle school, I started thinking maybe I was a lesbian. I had some good friends and some great girlfriends. But still, something wasn't quite right. I was anxious, I was depressed. I couldn't understand why I felt all alone and by myself. You would think I'd be able to talk to someone about all this, having 2 dads, lesbian aunts, and lots of great friends, but I just didn't have the words to describe what I was feeling. So, what do? Look it up on Google, right? So, I started researching using my computer, trying to understand what was different. And by the time Christmas rolled around 5 years ago, I had found the words. I knew what it was, and I was able to talk to my dads, my family, and my friends about who I am. I am a transgender male, born biologically female, but every part of my mind, every thought, every motivation is that I am male. Imagine that as a Christmas present to my family. It's through having places to go, such as Wagley, Nexus, and Umbrella. It's through having people to talk to, others just like me, at various stages of their personal journey, that has given me the confidence and the drive to help others who are also on similar journeys. I don't think I would change anything about how I came out. It's not always been easy. There's been bullying at school, friends who left, but the support of my dads, my brother, sisters, and friends made it easier every step of the way. Overall, it's been a pretty amazing time. I testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee, giving a face and a name to the needs of transgender kids, as well as nationally for a Supreme Court case, Gavin Grimm v. Gloucester County School Board, a young man being discriminated against for who he is. Isn't that crazy? And most recently, I spoke with the Boston Globe and about the Healthy Youth Act, as well as the Transgender Public Accommodations ballot coming up in this year's election. I tell my story in hopes that it would educate the many people who never met or knew transgender people. I am not unique. I am not special. I don't have special gifts. I'm not a wizard. I'm just a teenager on a journey, one that includes going on dates, applying for college, because I got to do that soon, and starting new beginnings, just like all of you, on your own personal journey. I encourage each and every one of you to be your person each and every day. Know who you are, demand what you deserve, and make sure that you always understand that others aren't in the same place as you. This does not mean that they're against you. It just means that they are different, just like all of us. Now, the big important message I want to get through this is, like I said, we're all on different journeys, and the steps you take affect my life and affect so many other people's lives. And just thinking about these amazing people sitting here before you, do you want to change our lives for the better or make my life become a roller coaster that falls off the tracks? Thank you.
I just want to take a moment to thank Brandon and everybody on the panel too. Can we give everybody on the panel who shared their personal story another round of applause? Thank you all so much. Thank you. So we're going to move to the next part of our guest speakers. We have some community representatives and support providers today who are going to share a little bit about the work they do and help further the conversation that we're having. And we want to start off by welcoming Representative Paul McMurtry. Thank you. Representative McMurtry has served on the Massachusetts House of Representatives since 2007. He represents Dedham-Westwood and the 8th Precinct of Walpole. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And would you join me in a nice round of applause for Kelly, Tracy, and Brandon? And pardon me if I get emotional, because it is an amazing inspiration. The stories you've shared and your sense of humor, the courage you have is so humbling and inspiring. And I'm so grateful to be here in your company, and also to be here amongst each and every one of you. And this very important community forum. I want to thank the organizers of the Dedham-Westwood-Norwood community forum on transgender equality for putting this together and educating us, because that's what it's all about. And I'm proud to take this stage. I'm proud to say that in 2016, I stood with my colleagues in the legislature to protect the rights of transgender individuals and to make sure that Massachusetts is a place that we're proud to call home, proud to stand with individuals, families and friends, neighbors, teachers, co-workers that have the same basic human rights, human dignity and respect as each and every one of us have earned and deserve. So I applaud each and every one of you for being here. I hope that when we wake up on November 7th, that we can proudly say that our efforts, our collective grassroots efforts have made a difference, and let's continue to be proud of the work that Massachusetts has led the way with this, and keep the laws on the books and make sure that everyone has the human rights and dignity they deserve. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and congratulations once again to each and every one of you for the courage of sharing your personal stories. It makes a difference for all of us.
Next, we want to introduce Sawyer Bethel. Sawyer uses they, them, and their pronouns. Sawyer is the executive director of Out Metro West, which is an independent nonprofit organization committed to supporting and enriching LGBTQ communities in Metro West Boston and beyond through programming, education, and advocacy. Sawyer earned their MSW from Boston College, as an eagle I appreciate, and began working with children and adolescents and young adults in a variety of settings. Sorry, I gotta put my paper. let me hand this off to you as we get settled. Thank you. Thank you. Sawyer began their career in Out Metro West in 2013 as a support group advisor and became a member of the board of directors in 2015, moving to their present director role in 2018. Thanks, Sawyer.
Okay. So thank you to Temple Beth David for hosting this, and I'm so glad that we actually got to open up the back of the room. It's really touching and heartwarming, especially being a community organizer and a community worker and a social worker. So it's just really, really great to see so many friendly faces and also folks who are hopefully learning some new things tonight as well. So I am here as the executive director of Out Metro West, and Brandon, lovely, he put in a nice plug for our programs of Wagley, Nexus, and Umbrella. So there are 3 different groups that we have that are held in the Metro West area and various locations, including Wellesley, Newton, and Framingham. So Wagley is our flagship program that is for LGBTQ plus youth and their allies who are in high school. And that takes place every Monday in Wellesley. And then we have Umbrella, which is now going on, I think, year 4 or 5, something like that. But Umbrella is specifically for transgender and gender nonconforming high school students, and that meets every other week, first and third Wednesdays, in Wellesley and in Framingham, respectively. And then we have Nexus, which was actually the first in the Commonwealth 3 years ago to provide a program specifically for LGBTQ plus and allied middle school students. So now there's currently 2 programs in the state that run something that's outside of school hours, and specifically as a supportive social group for middle schoolers. So we have the first one, and then the other one is NAGLY, which is up in the North Shore. So we get to serve around, I'd say like 300 to 400 youth per year. And one of those lovely youth is Brandon. And I'm so excited every time that I get to say that Brandon is kind of like ours. So, but he's also mine in terms of my community and also being a transgender person. And that I'm proud that he gets to share his story so eloquently. It's just, I love it, absolutely love it. So I'm also here to say that, for youth and youth like Brandon, this bill is really, really important. This can show them that, hey, yep, you're 17, will you be 18 by November? No. So Brandon can't vote, right? So Brandon can't vote. We all know that Brandon would vote yes on 3, right? Pretty sure that's a given on that one. But he can't. And almost, we're probably like 95% of the youth that we serve also can't vote because they're not 18. But the majority of folks in this room are over the age of 18, and you can vote, and your vote does make a difference. I don't have to explain why, but every single vote counts, every single vote matters, and especially to show our young people that we care, that we're here, and that we support them and love them and celebrate them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sawyer. Our next speaker is Aspen Eberhardt. Aspen uses the pronouns I, am, and air. Aspen is here representing Greater Boston Pflag, as well as Yes On 3 from Freedom, Massachusetts. Pflag is an organization made up for parents, families, friends of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. Aspen has spent countless hours volunteering with Pflag to provide LGBTQ education and sensitivity training for schools, workplaces, and communities. Aspen also volunteers with Freedom for All Massachusetts to advocate for transgender equality. Welcome, Aspen.
Hello, everybody. I just want to thank the panel again. What coming up and being so vulnerable and sharing your stories is something I do, and I know it takes a lot of emotional labor, and I just want to thank you very much for doing that. So I am the finance manager at Greater Boston Pflag, and what we do, one of the primary things that we do is we host support groups for families of LGBTQ individuals in the Greater Boston area. We also have separate support groups for parents specifically of transgender folks. We also have a helpline. A lot of people call in and they have questions. So we get them, situated with, resources, hook them up with a support group. We connect them with other parents who have been in similar situations and can help them out. We also do trainings and have a speakers panel where we go into communities, we go into schools, we go into workplaces, and we train folks on being, inclusive and accepting of their coworkers or their students. And for us at Pflag, a lot of the sort of situations that we see is there's a lot of parents who are coming to us about this bill and being like, I am so scared for my children. I'm so scared about their safety. They're scared. I'm scared about how to support them. So it's really heartwarming to see so many people in this room, so many people out and, being ready and voting yes on 3. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Next, we want to invite up Rabbi Becky Silverstein, who uses the pronouns he, him, and his. Rabbi Becky Silverstein holds a BS in engineering from Smith College and rabbinic ordination from the Rabbinical School of Hebrew College. Through his roles as a spiritual advisor, teacher, and a board member of rabbinic organizations, he works to build conversations and communities, allowing and encouraging people to bring all of their identities to spiritual practice.
Good evening, folks. This evening I'm here also as a representative of Keshet. Keshet is a national organization working for the full inclusion and equality of LGBTQ folks in the Jewish community. We achieve that through 3 main program areas: our institutional change work, where we go out into synagogues and Jewish camps, Jewish communal organizations, and do trainings and educational work. Our community building work, where we create Jewish communal spaces for LGBTQ identified folks to celebrate Jewish traditions, holidays, and their own milestones. And the third is through our youth work. This year we'll host 6 LGBTQ and ally Shabbatonim weekend trips away, where folks will come together with a group of LGBTQ staff and celebrate Shabbat together, talk about what it means to be LGBTQ and Jewish, share bits about our lives, deepen relationships, etc. In my work as rabbi in residence on those Shabbatonim and as a rabbi in the Jewish community, I often have the opportunity to celebrate transgender lives. So we're here talking tonight about Yes on 3 and about this bill that could, as Brandon put it, create a roller coaster for many of our life's experiences, mine as well as a member of the trans community. And in some ways, the feeling right now that I have for myself and in my community is that this is both an important moment, obviously, and also a little bit of a distraction from the things we want to be doing. Right, so the work I want to be doing in the world is continuing to build ritual that allows trans folks to celebrate name changes, steps on social or medical transition, having inseminations, anything that queer folks want to celebrate. I want to be there and rabbiing to them, right? Not on a stage talking to you saying, vote yes on 3, go do phone banking, go canvass, talk to your pastors and your rabbis and your other clergy members and the folks who live next to you and the folks who you talk to every day and whomever to affirm our rights. But here we are. Here we are doing that. And it's important. And my hope is that when November 7th rolls around and November 8th rolls around, all of us will once again be able to refocus into building lives that are filled with joy and filled with beauty, and celebrating the resilience and excitement and really fun that it is to get to be who we are in the world, unapologetically, and knowing that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts agrees with us and supports us in that journey. And I'll get to say that, that they support me, but also all of the folks who I have the opportunity to work with. So thank you for being here. Thank all of you for sharing your stories. Please vote yes on 3, and please make sure other people around you are doing so as well.
Thank you very much. Next, we want to invite up Christine Bernardi, who uses the pronouns she, her, and hers. Christine earned her law degree from Suffolk University Law School and has been in private practice for nearly 30 years. She is co-author of the Child Welfare Practices Manual that is used to instruct attorneys in the administrative practices of the Department of Children and Families, and has been a warrior for families whose lives have been turned upside down by government interventions. She's a proud advocate for transgender people, assisting her clients through the intricacies of law that affect them as they pursue living their authentic lives. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. This is kind of a lawyer thing. We don't know how to do this without a table. So I'm going to guess you're each here for a different reason, or maybe you're all here for the same reason, but I'd be surprised if you're all here for the same reason. Some of you are here to learn, some of you are here to support, some of you are here to question. There's a lot going on. We have a lot happening in this world right now. Yes? Can't hear me? Okay. I can hear me really well, that's why. So the question that we have is a question of what do we think should be happening out there in this world? Should everybody have equal rights, no matter who they are, no matter what their choices are, no matter how they were born? That's the question you're being asked. You're not being asked to give someone a right that they don't deserve. You're being asked the simple question, I am who I am. And actually, you have no idea who I am right up here right now. And I've been judged over and over again through the years because I'm a lawyer, right? I have a Mercedes, I have a white picket fence, I live in the suburbs. All my children are white, or I'm married to a white guy. You don't have any idea who I am standing here. And I'm not going to tell you who I am. Because then you could have a decision on what my rights should be, right? You don't know. You know who these folks are because they've told you. But every day you walk through life, you run into a different individual. Like I know 2 people in this crowd. You might know the person beside you. You don't know that much about Paul McMurtry. He's told you certain things about him. He's been investigated 1,000 times because he's run for office and they've told you about him in the media. But that's what you've been told, right? But you don't know who is standing next to you in the bathroom. You don't. You don't know who's sitting next to you in a restaurant. And all that is being asked of you with question 3 is just let people be who they are, no matter where they are. Whether it's in a bathroom, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's an amusement park, whether it's on the street, whether it's ordering a cake in a bakery. Sorry to bring that one up. But in Massachusetts, we want to say, whoever you are is who you can be. And whoever you are, we accept you. Because 9 times out of 10, you have no idea who any of us are. You're making a judgment based on what you're looking at, but you don't know. You really don't know. And so what question 3 is asking you to do is support that. That's it. That's all. Just let people be who they are, whoever they are. That's all it's all about. And so what I'm saying to you today is public accommodations are places where we all go. Okay, here, this is a public accommodation right now. The street is a public accommodation. Going to 6 Flags with your children is a public accommodation. I do recall early on in my career, and you've been told now my age is out, that 30 years I've been practicing law, and so 30 years I've dealt with youth. And juvenile has been my specialty for 30 years. I do other stuff, I actually run a program in Norfolk County Probate Court and in Suffolk County Probate Court where children get attorneys for free in cases where their parents can't work out custody issues for them so that their voice is heard. And so throughout the years, I've had different cases where I had a young woman who was born, physically male, who they were going on a field trip. And the question, it was like a crisis. Where was she going to go to the bathroom? I was like, what do you mean, where's she going to go to the bathroom? Why am I getting a phone call as her lawyer? Where's she's going to go to the bathroom where there's a bathroom? And that drew to my attention, and this is going to be an interesting question, but how many people in this room have been to a concert, a Red Sox game, a Patriots game, where there was a line for the ladies' room and you went in the men's room? I mean, I have done that. I think I did it 3 weeks ago. And no one ever said to me, you don't belong in here. I was like, just get out of my way, I have to pee. I mean, and I was going to be arrested for that? It never even crossed my mind. I just had to go to the bathroom, there was no line. And my girlfriend was like, I got this. And then we switched, right? But that's what we're talking about, that's ridiculous. That the thought that I went into the Red Sox game and I went into the bathroom and never thought twice about being arrested or twice about anybody having a problem with that. We've done that our entire lives. Why should that be different for anyone else? Why can't we just use the bathroom when we have to go to the bathroom? But this young woman had to we had to go through this entire plan. We had to come up with a plan because they were going to the Freedom Trail, and where would she go to the bathroom? Well, she should go to the bathroom where she feels comfortable going to the bathroom. And the Freedom Trail shouldn't be a dangerous place anymore, right? I mean, come on, it was at one point, but it shouldn't be anymore. We're free, But that's what we're talking about. So if I just really want folks to think about this. If you're here to learn, think about this in terms of how we walk through life every day, right? I'm just me, and I expect to just walk through life as me. And that's what we're asking in a vote for yes, is that folks can just walk through life being them and being protected by the law, protected by those who are to protect us from people who are naive, uneducated, ignorant, mean, all of the above, or just don't get it. But that's what this is all about. And we're not asking to change the law. The law is already in place, which is kind of confusing, right? The law's in place. But what we're saying is we stand by, and this is how we want everyone in Massachusetts to feel safe and protected. And we have been that state since day one. We are the Bill of Rights. We created the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was not written down there in, I think it was Philadelphia back then. It was written here. We had the first Constitution. We had the first Bill of Rights. And we are the state that fights for the rights of everyone. And therefore, we are the ones that need to continue to lead this path and vote yes on free.
Thank you so much, Christine. And next we want to invite Reverend Dr. Jennifer Phillips, who uses she, her, and hers to speak to us. The Reverend Dr. Jennifer Phillips is rector to St. John's Episcopal Church in Westwood. She's a social justice author and has a passion for building community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is just inspiring to listen to the three of you. I want to start to fit in here with a little bit of storytelling, just short. But I'm going to end by inviting some of my colleagues to introduce themselves, because there's a bunch of clergy here. There are some other clergy who would like to be here who couldn't be here. None of us can speak for the fellowship of clergy in our towns, because denominationally we are in very different places around issues of gender and sexuality. But there are clergy who would be right here, whose congregations are not ready, and there are clergy whose congregations may be kind of ready, but their hierarchy is not. So just know there are more friends out there than may be apparent among clergy. I grew up in a kindly English Baptist home with the Bible and the usual understanding that the world is like Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve in Genesis. They're not super funny, but kind of conservative. In 1968, when I was in high school, the not failing New York Times ran an article in their magazine about Olympic athletes who that year, several women had been thrown out of the Olympics because this was the first year that they were testing DNA to determine gender. And in the 11th grade, I was stunned. I was stunned, and my first thought was, this cannot be. These women's lives were devastated. They were brokenhearted. They lost what they had trained for years because someone needed to test their gender. It was clear to me that this was unjust and absolutely wrong, and that the right to define your selfhood is about as fundamental as any right in the world. So I was stirred up in the 11th grade and have been ever since. I'm an Episcopalian, and I went in nowadays, and I went into hospital chaplaincy because I wanted to listen reverently to people's stories in a place where the telling of stories matters desperately. Because people are on the threshold of life and death and wellness and illness, trying to make sense out of everything, and they need friends who walk in that alien territory with them to listen. So I actually sought out among the many patients in major medical centers where I trained and worked, people whose stories were unusual around gender and sexuality, and boy, did I hear a lot of them, and boy, were they various and wonderful. And it became clear to me that far from Noah's Ark, that the nature of creation, of reality, is that we, like all species pretty much on this earth, are incredibly diverse in gender and sexuality. And that we're made this way. It's clear to me. I believe in God, so I believe God has ordered the universe this way. And that we now have the language and the science and the sophistication to read scriptures, Jewish, Christian, and to see the world as it really is, and to not believe that the letters of the text tell us what God had in mind when all of this has come into being. So I did 10 years of AIDS ministry and education, and finally ended up in parish life in an amazing parish that was at the forefront of LGBTQ advocacy and welcome in the Episcopal Church. I can't believe that we are, at this moment in time, still wrestling over these issues. I am so heartened that there's a whole young generation that is growing up, understanding the world so broadly and differently and kindly compared to a while back, but we're not there. We're not there. I'm so aware of how dangerous the world is for anyone whose sexuality and gender does not conform to what the world thinks of as the norms. And that we lose so many young people to suicide is heartbreaking. And that there are so many who are brave and courageous and living healthy lives and making happy relationships is fabulous, wonderful. So here we are in Massachusetts with this chance to say to those who would undo what has been slowly and painstakingly put together, this cannot be undone. We will not take anything away from sisters and brothers, whatever their gender, around us, because we want to go back to some previous idea of what we thought reality was back then. There is a room in this world for everybody, but we have to keep fighting for it. Hopefully not forever, but for now, this November. This vote really matters for people, and it may save some lives. It certainly will reduce suffering to keep this protection in place. So that's a bit of my story, and I want to pass the microphone. A fellow clergy who are here, will you stand up and just tell people who you are and where you're from? And I'm starting here with my good colleague who is also at St. John's Episcopal Church in Westwood.
Hi, I'm Karen Fraioli. I live in the town of Sharon, and I had the privilege to serve at St. John's before Jennifer. It's a great joy to be here with you all.
And this is Emily, who won't stand up because she's technically not clergy, but she's my youth minister and is an amazing human being and a leader and educator. So, Emily, welcome.
And I'm Raleigh Weaver. I'm the minister at the First Church and Parish in Dedham, and just yes on 3.
It's lovely. I came in early, and so to look back and see the room open, I'm Michelle Allen. I'm the pastor of the First Congregational Church in Norwood, and I'm very, very happy to be here and to vote yes on 3.
I am Larry Bloom. I am the deacon at St. Susanna Catholic Parish over in Dedham. As Trump said at the UN the other night, I wasn't expecting that. Apologies from Father Gisoma, who was recovering from a hip operation. But I was ordained a deacon 40 years ago, and we learned absolutely nothing in the seminary about any of the issues that have been discussed this evening. So we've had to pick it up on our own, which is a benefit because we would have had to learn what they wanted to teach us if we learned in the seminary.
Little plug for St. John's. Marianne Wattendorf, who is one of our parishioners and parish leaders, really, came and talked to our vestry, our parish council, about this referendum issue and whether the parish would sign on, apart from just me as an individual. She spoke to our council. She left the room after a wonderful little presentation, and I turned to them and I said, well, you know, we'd like to talk some more about this. And they turned to me and they said, no, we don't need to talk about this. We are for it. We're all for it. And that was it. And that's St. John's Westwood. So, yay.
Can we just give one last hand to all the community partners and religious and community leaders here? Thank you so much. So we're going to move into the Q&A part of our afternoon or evening together. Oh, sorry, so do you want to step?
Sorry, so the thing about representing multiple things is there was a bit of a miscommunication. So I'm going to talk about Yes on 3 now. In case you were all wondering why I didn't talk about it earlier. So as you probably are aware, the law was passed in 2016 where trans people would be protected in public accommodations. Public accommodations are anything from, you know, parks, restaurants, hospitals, you know, anywhere a person can go in the public. One thing, actually, my boss had said recently to like explain public accommodations is A person can like work at a restaurant and be safe and supported in the restaurant, and then go the next day to go to a restaurant, the same restaurant, and be denied service because they're transgender. So we've had a couple recent polls lately that have looked really good. It's been saying that we're in the 70% of people being supportive of this law. And I really urge you not to get complacent about this. As we've seen in Houston, they were, in a similar boat where people were very supportive, and then the opposition came out with all of these, nefarious ads about people's safety, about specifically restrooms, and that support went way down, and they ended up losing. And we're seeing a similar trend, like a new ad just came out today that I saw. So I want to urge you to, be happy and be, excited that the polling does look good right now, but don't get complacent. So there are multiple ways that you can get involved with Yes on 3. You have these wonderful little action cards that have been put on everybody's chair that has, different ways that you can get involved, get plugged in with the program. You can go sign up for a phone bank, sign up for a canvas. There's an action calendar on Freedom Massachusetts website where you can find something that works for you and your schedule. There are tons of things happening. We're having a big push for people to volunteer for Get Out the Vote, which is the weekend before the 6th. As well as, I would just urge you, to do what you can. If everyone in this room talked to 5 people, I'm gonna make an assumption that there's like 100 people in this room. That would be 500 conversations. So thank you.
Thank you, Espen. Thank you very much. Thanks for that perspective, which is very important, and the message, so thank you. So we are moving into the Q&A portion, and people are collecting cards, so if you have any questions that you want to make sure get addressed, there are some volunteers going around grabbing them right now. That's where we'll go next. Thank you. So I'm going to take a look at these, and I'll kind of paraphrase and try to join them in together. So if you don't hear your question answered, let me know, but we'll try to get to them all. So first of all, comments that this is a great panel, which I think everybody in this room agrees with. And we're glad to see this forum is being recorded. And this might be a question for some of our organizers. Is this going to be shown on the cable network or to reach a wider audience? That's an affirmative. Yes, it is. Excellent, thank you. Another question is, are there any other local groups for folks in their 20s who identify as transgender? This is from a parent whose child identifies as a woman and just recently came out at 29 and might benefit from something like that.
It's on. Okay. So there's the AGLI networks, which I'm a part of. I can't speak directly to it, so if I can give the mic to Sawyer, Sawyer knows more than I do. So young adults, assuming, let's say 29. So there's certain things that are out there. Unfortunately, there's not a ton. Boston Glass is one of them. It's actually located right outside of Jackson Square. It's run by JRI Health, and you can go to their drop-in up until 25, and then utilize their services until 30. Then there's a lot of online stuff that's around. I know that I know a little bit more, unfortunately, about the transmasculine communities rather than transfeminine communities, but definitely encourage going online and trying to find those. Trying to think of what else. Yeah, so the Sydney Borum, it's run underneath Fenway Health. I believe you can go there until you are 35. And you can get medical care, mental health care, and various other kind of things there too. And then Fenway Health probably has some groups as well. They do. They have groups. So, but I think it's also hard, and that we know, and I know as a member of the queer community, that a lot of social outlets are in bars, are in places where alcohol is really flowing, I guess. But there's a lot of other things of social recreational groups. There's the Beantown Softball League that I got to see Kelly play in the All-Star game a couple years ago, and I was really excited. There's some other kind of recreational leagues that are around that trans folks are becoming more prevalent in. I personally play on the Trailblazers softball team, and we're specifically a trans supportive team within the Beantown League. So there's lots of other things. I have my contact information out there. If whoever asked that question, you want to ask me directly and any other questions.
Thank you so much. Good place. So my next question is being transgender genetic?
Beats me.
Yeah, I'd say the exact same thing. I didn't even know how to respond to that. Like, it's completely like, no, just no, it's not. Like, no.
A little bit more serious. For me, I actually went and had genetics done because I wanted to know. This part of my journey, part of my quest was, why am I this way? And I asked that question over and over and over and over and over. And the genetics came back XY. So that part of it, no. That I'm XY, I know that because I actually had testing because I thought there had to be a reason that I'm this way. I'm this way because that's how I was born. Hormonally, whatever happened physically is who I am. And I can't change that no matter what the genetics are. And so when they talk about you can now do, there's tests that tell if you're transgender or not. That's terrifying. Because what if they said I wasn't? Would that mean that I no longer get medical help? So I just hope you accept that who we say we are, we don't really, I don't know, maybe you have figured it out, but I don't know why I'm transgender other than that's the way the universe said I was supposed to be. And I tried everything in my power to not be that way, and I ended up being this way anyhow.
Did you want to say something?
Sorry. Yeah, no, I know, just sit down. So transgender, so I think there's some definitions that are in the thing, whatever, program, thank you, it's like the paper. So transgender is really about gender identity, and so the really simple way of explaining what transgender is, it's how you think about yourself. So gender is between your ears, right? So like my gender is in here. It doesn't show in my blood, it doesn't show what's in my pants or what's not in my pants, what's inside my body, what's not. So it's all about what's actually, how I think about myself. Rather than genetics. So, and we do know that there are more genetics besides, so the sex chromosomes we know is XX and XY. There's more than that. There's XXY, there's XYY, there's a lot of other combinations that folks can have, and it's very rare for people to get their chromosomes tested. So a lot of us actually don't know. We don't know our own genetics. So that's just kind of the simple answer for genetic related trans issues.
Can I extrapolate on the questions?
Yeah.
I wasn't so concerned about can you prove it as I was curious, does it run in families? As you said that you had 2 children who were transgender. I wasn't sure if there was research, does it run in families? Are you more likely to have children?
Both of my parents are cisgender and I'm trans, so no. I mean, no, I don't think there is. There are some twin studies that are going around, but other than that, I don't think so.
That was more my question. More curious, not like can you prove it?
I don't know why my 2 kids are transgender, but there's not another, to my knowledge now, this is another question, maybe there is and I don't know it, but to my knowledge, there's not another transgender person in either my husband or my family, but maybe I don't know.
As far as I know, I'm the only transgender person in my family.
Thank you. Tracy, this question is specifically for you, maybe building off of what you just said. Can you talk a little bit about how your daughters decided to come out to you, and how did they hide it, and what that process might have been like?
I think that when you talk to a bunch of transgender people, you see that no one's coming out is the same, or no one's coming to terms with it is the same. And I think that my daughters kind of represent that. One of my daughters, my youngest daughter, says that she knew when she was 7 years old, and she knew she was a girl. And unfortunately, she didn't tell me that until she was 11. So she's been a long time. And I wish, if I could do anything, I would go back and I would look at that little girl or look at that kid, and I would say, I see you. I see that you are a little girl, and it's okay. But of course, we can't go back. But she knew very clearly. My older daughter, it reminded me a bit of what you were saying, Brandon, that she felt that something wasn't right, and things made her uncomfortable. Boys' clothes or getting in the boys' line made her uncomfortable, but she wasn't quite sure why. She didn't really identify. And then in junior high, 7th or 8th grade, she did the same thing. She looked online, and then she found these stories, and then she knew what it was. And then again, it took her a couple years before she was able to come to us and kind of work out what needed to happen. So.
Thanks, Tracy. This next question is about misgendering, and can you give more information maybe both on the impact of misgendering somebody and what you can do if somebody misgenders you?
Well, I'll just say, I'm obviously, as a cisgender person, but I just will say, I see what that does to my daughters. Particularly my older daughter, who transitioned a little bit older than my youngest. And I remember being in a restaurant, and the waitress was looking at the group, and my daughter was about ready to order, and the waitress turned away and said to my sister and me or whatever, and said, "Oh, ladies first." And I saw her face, and the pain in her face was something that I will never forget.
It depends on, like, if you accidentally misgender me, that's one thing. If you are making a point to say that who I am is not my authentic self, it stings and it hurts, because I've never had the voice until I moved to Massachusetts to correct those people. So I just swallowed that, and I hid it inside of me, and I let that fester. Now if you misgender me, I'm going to explain to you why you're incorrect. And if you continue to misgender me, then I will leave the situation, and I will let you know that I didn't appreciate it. But it stings very much, because it feels like it's someone is saying, who you say you are, I don't believe in.
Yeah, I want to add on that. As a 17-year-old, there's a word that people use that I don't like. It's called passing. And so a lot of people in the transgender nonconforming community want to feel validated, because, of course, nowadays society has to validate you before you validate yourself. And for me, that stings a lot, because I didn't even have validation from my own parents, and I had 2 dads. So misgendering someone hurts a lot. Obviously, it happens, and it's life, but if you do it on an ongoing occurrence, there is something that you need help with, not the person sitting in front of you. You need education. You need to talk to people. You need to realize what you're doing is hurting other people, and not that the person in front of you is hurting you, because that's not how it works. But yeah.
Thank you so much. I just want to share a quick story that happened recently with myself. I was out with a friend of mine who's a transgender man, and we were having dinner, and we were with a whole group of people, and the waitress misgendered him. And he was obviously frustrated, and when the waitress walked away, I was like, yeah, that's really annoying, like that happened. And he said to me, it's not just annoying, it really scares me, because when that happens, I worry if somebody else can question my gender, what's going to happen when I walk to the men's room? What's going to happen when I walk away from a group of friends? Does that give people around me permission to question my gender? It was a really eye-opening moment that this wasn't just annoying and frustrating, it's dangerous, and it was scary for him, and that was something that has really impacted me to think of that, and that hadn't occurred to me. So I think sometimes the stakes are really high too. So thank you all too. This question's about Speak Out. I don't know if any of you are in Speak Out, or any of our community partners can share what Speak Out is. Anybody hearing it? I can talk a little about it. So there you go. I got it. Thanks, Sawyer.
So my fee is about $150 an hour. So Speak Out Boston is a volunteer group they actually go out across the state. It's not just Boston, but it's trans, LGBTQ plus folks who go and they share their stories. There's a lot of focus now, obviously, on trans stories and what their lives are like, but they also go into businesses, communities, and it's more of they don't actually do specific programming per se, but it's really just being able to do storytelling and have that Q&A, and it's a really great volunteer organization. I think Ellen is their executive director, and she's really great. So I think they're always looking for new volunteers, but you can go online and you can find out more info.
Thank you so much, Sawyer. I know, it's surprise. Our two last questions, there might be some of our community partners or people have some legislative knowledge that might help us out, but some people are asking too about why is this even on the ballot? If it was passed as a law, how does this process happen that now it's something we have to vote on? If it was a fundamental right passed by a legislative process, why are we in this position right now? That'd be perfect. Thanks.
Hi. So it's on the ballot because for fairness, the opposition can put up a petition after a law has been passed through the Senate, and they got the minimum amount of signatures, which is 1% of the state, to say that they don't want this as a law. So that's why it's being put as a referendum this November.
You can hold on to that because my next one's
okay.
Thanks. So the next question is, where can people get signs and help support? Yes, Hans?
So to get signs, you would want to reach out to Freedom for All Massachusetts. You can go to their website, and I think there's a link at the top where you can go and it can say, receive materials, signs, postcards, stickers, donate here, and apparently Tracy has 3 in her car, if it's an immediate need.
Now 2.
Oh, now it's 2. Going once, going twice.
Should we get 50 or 60?
Yes.
Yeah, just go to the website and request them. Yeah.
Excellent, thanks. So that's actually brought us to the end of our Q&A session and the end of our night together tonight. I want to give everybody one more huge thank you, and for yourselves all for showing up tonight. Thank you all for showing up tonight. I'm sure that you took a lot away from this, and have a good evening.